This episode of Inside Golf Podcast is brought to you by Inside Sports Network.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Boston Capital Toodle, Steve, on the Hold the Green podcast.
All right, we are live. Tap in, birdie.
All right, Carson Young is here.
I bet Ludwig at 28.
Let's go. I bet
You
him
did
at,
too?
I bet him at 25.
Low sevens. I think there's some
Yeah.
guys in here we like.
Harris English at 7,300.
Why the fuck would I not bet Rory?
This episode of Inside Golf Podcast is brought to you by Inside Sports Network. Continue to be super, super proud and humbled with the work that we're doing. It was a massive Players Week for us. We rolled out our new on-the-course reporting coverage. This is something that I've made a healthy investment in, where we now should, for the rest of the year, have somebody covering practice rounds in person for us at most tournaments for the rest of the PGA Tour season. We'll certainly have it next week at the Valspar, as well as all through Texas. So I would sign up for the monthly now, because if you sign up for the monthly now, instead of going week to week, you're going to get all the way through the Masters. So you'll get on the grounds coverage for each of the next three events, and then right into Masters Week instead of just signing up for Masters Week. It's a way better deal if you sign up now for the monthly. And I promise you the edge on these smaller weeks with the weaker fields, although this Valspar field's pretty good, just as big, if not more, than the big events. And the overhanging philosophy here, again, this week was wild as ever from a content perspective. And I think what we're trying to do here, the goal has always been, these golf courses no longer have to be a mystery to you. Okay, how they play, it doesn't have to be some massive surprise every week. You don't need to follow a weird tee time trend that can't even be logically explained by anything other than variance. You're just going to keep getting crushed now by the people that are seeking this edge. And you're just going to keep getting crushed by the people that know how the golf course is going to play. And that's what we're going to continue to focus on more than anything at Inside Sports Network, right? Is if you know how the golf course is going to play, you have a bigger edge than most people doing this. And the weather, the course conditions, the AM over PM having this huge advantage, that's what we focus on. And that's what we cover every single week. And, you know, we've got an ISN logo at the top of the Millie Maker with Glover and Spawn, two guys we were super all in on. So rooting for our guy, Jake, tomorrow. He's actually got a couple lineups with a real chance in that contest. I actually have the member an event at my home club that I really care about and love. That's why I'm recording this late on Saturday evening, because they moved up the tee times tomorrow for the Players. I'm going to miss the entirety of the final round of the Players. The leaders are, which I don't like. I try not to miss most Sundays on the PGA Tour. It happens from time to time because I don't like missing it for work purposes, but I mean, I like playing golf more than I like watching golf. I'm always going to like playing golf more than I like watching golf. And this is one of those, this is like one of the 2 or 3 things I play in every year that I care about and I'm not going to miss. But the leaders are teeing off at 10 a.m. Eastern. My tee time in this is noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Again, but you know, it's like 1 or 2 big golf events I play in every year and care about how I play in. And so I'm bummed about this. It seems like there's a real storm coming in, however, around 3 or 4 p.m. So if you got to get it in, you got to get it in. I would much prefer, with the mountain of work I have every Monday, I would much prefer getting it done than having a Monday finish. But I apologize in advance to all the Discord members. I will not be around to congratulate any of the winners. I know we've got a lot of balls in play tomorrow, and it's been an awesome week. There's gonna be a lot of good with what we're doing now every single week in the community with the approach that we're taking to analyzing golf courses. So good luck to all tomorrow with the players. I want to talk a little bit. I want to talk a little players. I do. I've loved watching this event. I've watched a lot of it over the last 48 hours, and I'm not going to be able to watch tomorrow. So I want to talk a little players. I'm like not super hyped for the Valspar. I think it's a really weird handicap. And frankly, the golf course, it's kind of a confusing golf course to explain. I think it's one of the, there's a lot of things that are statistically anomalous about this golf course. I can't give you an overhanging narrative this week to focus on like I can with most other golf courses on the PGA Tour. The statistical through lines on this golf course are amongst the most nonsensical to me on the PGA Tour. I can talk about why that is. I have some theories on why that is. But I've got a couple just things I want to recap with the players. And I want to talk, I'm going to try and keep fighting against, there's a lot of things to Vic Lap every week. I know that with what we're doing at ISN. So I want to spend on the L's. Let's spend some time on the L's, things that I kind of missed on / wanted to, just kind of figure out why I may have gotten those wrong. Hopefully as something that could be educational for the future, right? We're trying to get the anti-Vic lap trend going, where you can get more comfortable talking about the things. You can call them L's. I like the branding of the anti-Vic, or just things that I expected to happen and they didn't happen, or the way that they played out surprised me. So I've got kind of 4. We'll do 4 anti-Vics this week, and then 1 more macro take on the golf course. Just things that I was thinking about over the course of the players in terms of things that I kind of missed on and caused a deeper investigation. Number 1, surprise to me. I chose Xander over Rory this week in daily fantasy. And I did feel pretty strongly that there was an opportunity on one of the two. I mean, Xander and Rory were the 2 next highest price guys to Scotty, and both were coming in sub 15%. And I put my eggs in the Xander basket, and that was a mistake. I know that Rory's won at this event in the past, but it still has always felt to me like a somewhat stifling golf course for Rory's skill set. And watching him play this week, I think it's been a pretty adult performance for him that I'm willing to mea culpa for. He had that one day where it was very Cam Smith-esque, and he ranked like almost dead last in the field in driving accuracy. I believe that was on Thursday. And then the following day, he really started to figure out the driver. And most importantly, like, he's just hit his irons really great this week, and it's been a pretty solid putting week for Rory. And he's been able to find ways to mainly score on this golf course, in conditions, on a setup with architecture that, in my opinion, still stifles his biggest weapon, right? I mean, he's not able to do to TPC Sawgrass what he does to a place like Quail Hollow. And for that reason, I went Xander over him, primarily actually liking what I saw from Xander at Bay Hill, in the sense that it was really just the short game that looked a couple minor details off for Xander. And I just think he's a little bit farther away than I wanted to believe this week. I looked at Bay Hill and I thought he played better than the results would suggest. And another week of gearing up at a golf course that he's played really, really well at on the past. I thought at 9%, that was a great opportunity. And listen, he made the cut. He certainly didn't kill you as much as other chalk did. In fact, I have a 6 of 6 with Xander in it that I'm like hoping can still have a chance. But Xander over Rory was a bad call by me. Rory was ready to play this golf course, and I think Xander is still getting there. You know, I don't think he's gonna win the Masters this year. He may even play poorly at the Masters this year, but I think he's building, and I was a little early there. Number 2, I think there was a much better case to fade Scotty this week than I outlined. And you know, again, Scotty didn't kill you. I may be sounding the alarm bells a little heavy on this one, but I went really heavy on Scotty Colin at the top. Really heavy on Scotty Colin at the top. I mean, my core was Scotty Colin, Aaron Rye, Adam Svensson 5,500. That was no good. But I didn't have massive expectations for him either. There are other things that I'm talking about now that I think were actually bigger sins than the logic for why I really liked Adam Svensson down there. I think this is more interesting to talk about. I think where we're at with Scotty right now, and listen, I think if you thought that Scotty was going to win at the rate that he won last year, that was a very unrealistic expectation. Okay. But I think a very realistic expectation would be that Scotty was going to continue to maintain the highest floor in golf. And I think he probably still has it. I mean, I'm not even alarmist sitting here saying that Scotty is not the best player in the world, or he doesn't still have the highest floor in golf. I think on any given week, like Scotty's bad is still better than Rory's bad. It's still better than Colin's bad. It's still better than Ludwig's bad. This guy treats a T12. I mean, the anger and frustration that he shows over a T12, you'd think he's Max Homa broken, right? I mean, that should show truly how good he is and how high his expectations are for himself, that the guy is like T12 right now, or I think he's T15. He's T15 right now. And, you know, you'd think that he's playing like, you'd think that he's 20 gazillion over par based on how upset he is about this. But it seems like Scotty's baseline last year was like T5. Okay. It was either win or the bad weeks were T5, T6. This year, it seems like the bad weeks are still T11, T12. Okay. And I think the conversation to jam Scotty at 40% ownership and 12.8K is a little bit of a different conversation when the norm is T12 every week. You know, you're signing for a T10 versus what you were signing for last year, which was either a T5 or a win. Okay. And so, and I don't, you know, listen, Scotty could easily, tomorrow we could be at the end of this tournament and Scotty's higher on the leaderboard potentially than Rory McIlroy. definitely in play. But let's just say, let's do our analysis for 3 rounds and say Scotty finishes somewhere in between 8th and 15th. Okay. And that's not even saying his ability to go down, like waste management. He finished T25. Okay. When you're playing that much salary and that much ownership, he's not killing your lineups, but now every single week, if Scotty's that ownership and that salary and is finishing just outside the top 10, there's always going to be better plays around him. Okay. Better plays are going to emerge around him. And maybe it was Rory this week, right? Where Rory at, I don't know, 1,500 less salary and a quarter of the ownership. It's just a much better play all around, just a much better play, both in salary and ownership, the type of lineups that you could build with Rory in there versus Scotty. And so again, I just think I overrated him a little bit this week on this golf course. And I wish I played Rory. Kind of right in line with this. They're related to each other. Colin is related to Scotty in a way, and I think he's also related to Tommy. So I kind of will talk about all 3 of them together because that was a big foundation for me, right? Scotty and Colin were core plays for me in DFS. Tommy, almost close to a core play for me to DFS in like 45% of my lineups, and I bet him at 30-1. It's interesting with Colin and Tommy. And Colin had just insane sharp support this week. I mean, it was really, we're talking opened up at 12 on Bookmaker, got hit like Colin closed on Bookmaker at like plus 875. Okay. The sharp support, the data on Colin this week was stronger than I've seen in quite a while with one player in a full field event. In terms of what I think you probably could have made the case for him, right? Which was, I came on my Sunday podcast last week and said, I think Colin 18-1 is a bad number. I think this guy has like maybe the second highest floor in this field outside of Scotty Scheffler, but how are we betting him at 18-1 to win a golf tournament? And then the market, which I'm usually pretty damn close to the market, particularly on the top of the board, the market goes, oh, no. 18-1 isn't the right number for Colin. 12-1's the right number for Colin. And really sharp people that I have a lot of respect for that bet on Bookmaker because they're severely limited and can't get down on all the other books that had Colin at 13 or 14-1, said to themselves, no, Colin at 12-1. I'm going to slam that. Okay. And while I didn't agree with the love in the outright market, I mean, I had Colin as the second highest top 10 likelihood in the field. I thought the course fit was stuff you dream about, right? And yeah, I mean, just the guy can't close a door right now. I didn't really want him to win, but it looked like until today he was going to sleepwalk into a top 10, which is kind of my expectation for him. I thought that Colin was going to sleepwalk into a top 10, and whether he figures it out on Sunday or not, your guess is as good as mine. I'm not going to pay the price to figure out, but the guy has the second highest floor in this tournament by my numbers outside of Scotty. And he's kind of a little bitch today. You know, so it's really interesting because I'll segue this into Tommy. I think Colin and Tommy Fleetwood right now, this is like maybe the most complete golf that both of those two guys have played in their entire career. What Tommy is doing on approach right now, this is like the best that Tommy Fleetwood has hit the ball in his career, and it's probably the most complete that Colin Morikawa has been as a golfer in his career. In terms of the total package with the way that he's chipping it now, his driving accuracy, and his approach play is getting back close up to peak levels of Morikawa as well. He's a more complete golfer than he's ever been. And at the same time, he hasn't won in over 500 days. He seems, you know, in golf, it's like so many of these guys, I've said this for Rory. And Rory said this almost about himself in full swing. And I think this is a really good way to summarize what it feels like with Colin Morikawa right now and Tommy Fleetwood to a certain extent, right? It's so easy for these guys to beat 80% of their competition every week. They're just better than their competition. They're better players than 80%, probably 95% of their competition every week. And if all things are equal and they sim the golf tournament 1,000 times, Colin Morikawa and Tommy Fleetwood, especially Colin Morikawa, because Colin Morikawa is still better than Tommy Fleetwood. But both these guys are going to beat 95% of their competition every single week based on who they are as golfers. And yet they've like never felt farther to me from separating and winning a major. You know, that's what Rory basically said in Full Swing. He's like, he was almost like, this is Full Swing season 1, but he's almost like, I don't think you know how easy it is for me to like show up and beat most of the guys. And yet I don't know how hard you realize it is for me to beat every one of the guys. And that's kind of what it feels like with Tommy and Colin. And you know, you have to ask yourself, listen, am I going to sit here and tell you that Tommy 30-1, the bet that I made, was like a demonstrably better bet than Colin 16-1? No, they're both losers. But they're both, particularly Colin, it's very similar to Xander last year. Okay. Because Colin's number isn't really going to go up because the data people are just going to hit him hard. Okay. Because the data people are just going to look at what Colin's doing right now, very similar to what Xander was doing right before he won 2 majors. And I'm not saying that Colin is necessarily going to win 2 majors this year, but you're not going to be able to get Colin at a good, you're going to have to pay a price to bet Colin the way that he's doing what Xander did right before he won 2 majors, where if Colin does finally start winning, it's not going to be at a good number, unfortunately. And by the way, I mean, Tommy, I legitimately think Tommy is like playing some of the best golf in his career right now. And Tommy got nuked by sharp bettors this week. I mean, we hit Tommy hard at 30-1. Tommy was down to the low 20s on sharper bucks in some spots. And so, you know, you kind of have this weird predicament of these guys are playing phenomenal golf, and yet, you know, the regular person thinks of them as gutless losers. And so what do you do? You know, I would say the prices on these players are probably going to keep getting bet by the sharp community. And maybe you get a Xander situation where most of the people that stuck around for Xander's 2 majors wins, it wasn't me. I hopped off. Just a lot of those were people that were like blindly hammering the data. And I do that. It's a lot of my process. But I also sometimes factor in the unquantifiable and get caught up in bullshit narratives too, and start to realize what it feels like if you're left holding the bag on a guy like Tommy Fleetwood outright that just isn't sniffing a candle on Sunday. Those guys are at interesting spots. Chalk recap. So once you get past Scotty and Colin at the top, and I went super heavy on Scotty and Colin at the top, and I don't think that was the optimal strategy. But here was really the chalk for the players. Ludwig was 25%. That was a major stand for me. Didn't really see the Ludwig thing the way others did at all. Got to throw a little Vic lap in there in this players discussion. I'll Vic lap Ludwig and Michael Kim being terrible plays. I was pretty on the record about that. But the chalk that Ludwig, Straka, Michael Kim, Aaron Rye, Corey Connors, Keegan, Doug Gim, Justin Rose, Nick Taylor. Those guys were all either sub $9,000 over 9-10% owned. I played 4 of those guys. Okay. So I play pretty contrarian, but I'm not telling you to fade all the chalk every week. I played Rye as a core play. Rye and Gim are like, my hands are tied with those guys with the numbers. Gim and Rye has been a core play for me like half of the season. I've been riding Gim since the bottom. I thought he was maybe going to win the Honda for us. Like, those are my guys. And Gim was very predictable. Rye, I'm going to hope backdoor like a T17 tomorrow. But God, could you imagine if Sepp Straka wins? I would be floored. Okay. I would be floored. I thought Sepp 25% was lunatic behavior. Okay. I get it. I certainly get the people that bet him at 55-1 or whatever. Sepp broke the chart record for most tips. Okay. You're going to put the guy with the most tips in chart history on maybe the most variance packed golf course on the entire PGA Tour. How is that going to work out? And look at Sepp. He's got an outside shot to win tomorrow. He's T7. It's a good play at 25% ownership. He's T7. You got to tip your cap. It's going to be a tough day for me tomorrow, just for mentally, I think, if Sepp Straka, who got 55 tips and was 25% owned at the players, wins the players. Good pick, guys. Okay. And then finally, on course conditions, I just really enjoyed the golf this week. I tweeted out today that if you like watching birdies more than this, we are not the same. And I didn't mean that to be antagonistic in any way. And again, there's a lot of agreement on, I think, the takes that I'm providing in the golf space in terms of what PGA Tour fans want. You're going to get at least a 5 to 10% negative response on anything that you say on Twitter. I mean, you could say things with close to what you would think would be super high approval, like the most lukewarm takes of all time, and you're still going to get people that are going to say, fuck you, I disagree. Like it's just a sport to some people. But I was really pleased to see that, like, I think there are a lot of informed golf fans out there that really love seeing professional golfers hit different shots and be tested. And I'm going to keep talking about golf courses, firm and windy golf courses that test the pros at the highest level. I shouted out Bay Hill last week, and I was extremely critical of the Cognizant setup. I think that ball knowing golf fans want to see the best players in the world struggle and try and pull off golf shots. And what you got to watch today were golf shots. You got to watch adversity. Okay. And I think, in my opinion, what makes athletes awe-inspiring is watching them do the unthinkable, watching them overcome adversity, watching them do things that we couldn't do, right? And if you lined up a bunch of really great college golfers on a driving range next to a golfer on the PGA Tour, next to, I don't know, let's do a drive-by on Ryan Gerard, okay? If you just watched Ryan Gerard and a great college golfer or Stu Hagestad hit into TrackMan, you're not going to know much of a difference, okay, with a lot of PGA Tour players. And a lot of these setups, a lot of these golf courses on the PGA Tour are set up to give very controllable conditions. Okay. They're set up to give conditions that are often quite synonymous with the shots that players are used to hitting into a simulator on a flat Bermuda driving range in Florida. Okay. They're not asked to navigate random trees or moguls. A lot of the slopes around the greens that give you some kind of sketchy stances at TPC Sawgrass, and the way that the holes interact with each other and move often require you to hit a draw into what would be typically a more comfortable cut win. And you need to play shots out there. You needed to play golf shots out there. And what you saw from players like Scotty Scheffler, Will Zalatoris, just to name a few, was frustration that they were up against something that they could not simulate on their driving range in Texas or Jupiter, Florida. Okay. And we have never had in professional golf more optimization of technology and more control of the golf ball. Golfers in 2025 have never known more where their golf ball is going because of TrackMan and because of the optimization of technology than they do today. They have never had more control over how far they hit it, how much spin they put on the ball, how it lands, what it does when it lands, right? The launch angle, the lie, the amount that it curves. Okay. They've never had more control over that ever in 2025 than they do right now. Okay. So the question that the tour should have every single week is, how do we take away some of that control? Okay. And if there's a couple weeks a year where it's just like, who's the best driving range golfer? Who is the, it's just like Amex, where it's like overseeded carpet, pure execution test. Yeah, I understand you need that once in a while. But if you think that's more compelling than watching these guys lose control, we may just like different things. That's fine. It's fine. We may just like different things. So, you know, there's really good golf watch today. Really, really good golf watch today. And Sawgrass could be a lot. It could be even better. It's going to get better. There are a lot of things about Sawgrass that it's like operating, I think, at 85% of what it could be. And it's still, I mean, it is such an incredible test of professional golf, even with the Augustification of the golf course. And the golf course would look so much better if it was dormant Bermuda. I mean, the golf course is meant to play firm and fast. Can read Pete Dye's book that he wrote about how TPC Sawgrass was meant to play firm and fast. The guys over at the Fried Egg have done an excellent job highlighting this. I've been talking to Joseph Omania about this all week. And even that it isn't that, the golf course isn't even what Pete Dye totally intended it to be. Gosh, today was awesome. So that's those are my thoughts on the players. I have no idea who's going to win tomorrow. I would bias take Cantlay. I'm holding a Cantlay 40-1. I think I'm going to say just for fun, I think Corey Connors hangs around tomorrow. I think there's better ejection candidates than Corey Connors. And I remember him, you know, I played Corey this week. I liked Corey this week. Last year, he was like, I was in love with the guy at TPC Sawgrass last year. And I just continue to believe that this is such a perfect golf course for his skill set with the way that he's hitting the ball right now, particularly with the way that he's driving it. You know, I could see Corey Connors getting a Players Championship. Let's go with that as fun. Okay, let's take a quick break, and then we'll finish up with a little Valspar. Okay, we're back. Valspar. We're heading to Tampa this week. Final stop in a 4-week Florida swing. I don't think it's the best Florida event. Maybe it's the most underrated. I mean, the field strength has been up and down over the past couple of years. It's pretty good this year. Xander, JT, Spieth, Tommy Fleetwood, Sam Burns, Shane Lowry, whatever's left of the Victor Hovland experience, Daniel Berger, amongst others. And, you know, we've got 3 more weeks till Augusta. This could be the last time we see Xander before Augusta. Could be the last time we see JT before Augusta. Probably the last time we see Tommy before Augusta. Maybe the last time we see Lowry before Augusta. I don't know. But last year we had, and thank God I wasn't a golf trip for this last year. I was actually in the Tampa area at Streamsong for this golf tournament last year, and I didn't watch much of it at all, except the very end of the final round when I was in the Tampa airport with a bunch of PGA Tour pros, actually, nonetheless, who were on their way home. Peter Malnati won -12 over Cameron Young -10. Malnati was 330-1. The prior year, Taylor Moore won at -10, Red State, over Adam Schenk -9. Moore was about 55-1. 2022 and 2021, it was both Sam Burns at 17 under, once in a playoff over Davis Riley, once over Keegan Bradley. Burns was 70-1 and then 20-1 the second time. The golf course played demonstrably easier those last 2 years of the Burns years. So the way you can think about this is the 2 years that Sam Burns won, the golf course played under par. Every other year outside of Sam Burns, it's played over par. 2019, Paul Casey -8, played 0.9 over par. Super hard that year. It's a Larry Packard design. This is like, he's not a very serious architect at all. He hasn't really done much outside of this. It's in Palm Harbor, Florida. Par 71, 7,352 yards. We got that ryegrass overseed, super narrow 27-yard wide fairways, ryegrass overseed rough measuring 3.75 inches. I mean, it's real rough. This is at least the same length of rough that you got at the Players this past week, maybe a little bit less than Bay Hill. Greens are Poa Trivialis overseed, as we are used to seeing. Same greens at same greens that we saw really at TPC Sawgrass last week, measuring 5,822 square feet on average. So small greens, narrow fairways, small greens, thick-ish rough. And I've alluded to the underrated nature of this event. It's really got nothing to do with the architecture of the Larry Packard design or its visual appeal, but everything to do with the firm playing conditions. And firm is the operative word here, as turf conditions and wind often play a major factor in determining how this golf course plays. And that's why there's a really good week to join us at Inside Sports Network, because obviously we're going to have people there. And I do pretty well at predicting how it's going to play even in my living room, but it doesn't hurt to have people there as well. It can play drastically different under different conditions. In 2022, when Sam Burns won, it played 0.75 strokes under par. The following year, under much drier and windier conditions, Taylor Moore won at 10 under par with a scoring average that approached +1 stroke over par. Last year, he split the difference, and Peter Malnati won at 12 under par, and the course played +0.4 strokes over par. The last 2 years, it's played as the 10th and 11th most difficult golf course on tour, while the Sam Burns years, it is played as the 18th and 22nd most difficult course on tour. The 2 prior years to that, it played as the 3rd and 5th most difficult course on tour. So how's it going to play this year? This area of Florida has not, I'll give you what I think right now as we sit here on Saturday evening. Of course, this is going to develop in the Discord over the course of the week, but I can tell you how I think it's going to play on Saturday afternoon. That area of Florida has not experienced a ton of rain. I'm not seeing any rain during tournament week. The early weather forecast for Thursday and Friday shows really windy conditions. Like we're talking 16 mile per hour consistent wind speeds, 23 to 25 mile per hour gusts on Friday morning. And I'd monitor a wave edge for sure, potentially this week. We've seen wave edges at this event in the past. I think we're looking at a scoring average of over a quarter stroke above par with a winning score of 10 to 14 under par. And I mean, no rain, firm conditions, at least as it stands now. I've ramped up my weights on difficult, windy scoring conditions. We've got some amazing wind data at the Rabbit Hole. Inside Golf Inside Golf is the promo code you want for the Rabbit Hole. 25% off. We got our guys that are no laying up guys are loving the Rabbit Hole. Brandel loves the Rabbit Hole. Brad Faxon loves the Rabbit Hole. If you're using someone else for your data, oof, not great. Not great in 2025. BetSpertsGolf.com is where you want to be getting your data from. I can certainly tell you that much. In terms of the course itself, it's pretty unique in the sense that it features 5 par 3s and 4 par 5s. All 5 of the par 3s measure over 190 yards and play long and difficult. This is why you get over 50% of all approach shots coming from over 175 yards. Middle to long iron play still kind of remains the easiest roadmap to success at Innisbrook. Last year, the par threes played as the fifth toughest on the PGA Tour. You really want to try and navigate those holes around even par. Par fours are not really a huge pushover either. None of them play even below 380 yards. The par fives are kind of where you really have to score. Those are the easiest 4 holes on the golf course. And if I was really to encapsulate what makes Innisbrook so challenging, it's a placement golf course where the second shot is long. It's not really a golf course that can be overpowered off the tee. It's not a golf course where players can take less than driver off the tee and still expect a bunch of wedges in. And this is what somewhat yields a bit of a complex decision matrix off the tee, because it's kind of like, it might be really the only club down long iron intensive golf course really on the PGA Tour, which is a somewhat interesting juxtaposition, because usually the golf courses that accentuate long iron play are typically also golf courses that are driver heavy and accentuate distance, and those are long golf courses. And again, why Innisbrook is so hard is because it forces you to not hit driver on a lot of holes, but then you still have to hit a long approach shot. Okay. And for this reason, it's really weird, funky architecture that, like, not weird necessarily in a good way. It's really narrow and it curves a lot around bunkers. And that is an architecture that I think like any amateur golfer would be really interested in playing. I certainly wouldn't. But what it does create is this incredibly narrow pathway, which you never see on the PGA Tour, of testing accuracy and long iron play in the same week. Okay. And this golf course is really it's not a true Florida golf course. Okay. It fits more of a Carolina aesthetic. It's got a lot of, it's kind of wooded visually. It's got a lot of overhanging tree limbs that make the golf course feel somewhat claustrophobic, almost more so in a harbor town vein than like a PGA National vein. There's not as much water on this golf course compared to, your TPC Sawgrasses or your Bay Hills or your PGA Nationals. The first 3 stops on the Florida Swing, all of those golf courses all rank top 10 in penalty strokes per round. And the defining characteristic of those golf courses were like copious water hazards. Okay. And Innisbrook is far more in the vein of a strategic death by 1,000 paper cuts a la East Lake, or maybe a somewhat longer version of Sedgefield. Okay. It's a lot like a longer version of Sedgefield. East Lake makes a lot of sense. Harbor Town with more long irons, but it's a weird handicap. Like, I would say, and I'm going to save this for the article, the article at Inside Sports Network. I get in like deep into how to model this golf course. I think I figured it out, but every year something happens at the Valspar and I'm like, that doesn't really fit with what I think should happen on this golf course. Okay. And I break all that down in a 3,000 word article about what you should really, really be trying to do at this golf course to try and formulate what is, I would say, the most normal, straightforward path of least resistance to success at this golf tournament, even though it feels like that never freaking happens at this golf tournament. In terms of Peter Malnati, 330 to 1 last year is like one of the worst players on the PGA Tour, and he won on a golf course that is like a really difficult test of tee to green skill. What? You know, Sam Burns and Taylor Moore are like not good iron players compared to their other skills. And they won at a golf course with 5 par 3s over 190 yards, like a golf course that on paper is like this pure club down test of middle to long iron play. And the last couple of years of the Valspar have just been drunk, really drunk. Like when Paul Casey was winning this event, it made a lot more sense. Paul Casey is like who should win the Valspar every year. It shouldn't be a spike putting course, but it is. It's got such a low greens and regulation percentage. I mean, anyway, I talk about all that in the article. Let's run through quickly the model. And all of these guys are playing in the players. So I don't really have a lot of early leans until I figure out what's going to happen until I see the final numbers for the players. But let's run through the top 20 in the model real quick. And then we'll get out of here. We'll get out of here in an hour because I'm going to formulate a lot more of who I like in the Discord after the final numbers from the players come in. Okay, number 1, Xander Schauffele. Number 2, Tommy Fleetwood. Number 3, Justin Thomas. Number 4, Adam Scott. Don't trust that. I got to rework that a little bit, I think. And, this is without players' numbers. Okay. I think Adam Scott was pretty bad at the players. He rated out semi-highly for me at the players too, and I ignored it, and he missed the cut. So I think I'm starting to ignore Adam Scott, and I've got to fix the numbers on why Adam Scott keeps popping up for me higher than he should. It's on my to-do list on Sunday night to try and figure out how I can fix that. Shane Lowry, Dan Berger, Sepp Straka, Aaron Rai. So, I mean, outside of whatever the hell Adam Scott's doing there, my model is going to be the top of the odds board. Xander, Tommy, JT, Lowry, Berger, Straka. That's going to be the top 6 guys, I think, with Sam Burns. And then you probably get Zalatoris, Connors, Jordan Spieth, Tom Kim, Akshay, who rate out a little bit worse for me. But 8, Aaron Rai, 9, Doug Gim. A little bit of a heat check last week, but another great Doug Gim golf course. 10, Lucas Glover. He was top 20 in the players model. It's a big DFS play for us last week. And another great golf course for Lucas Glover. 11, Victor Hovland. Okay. Again, some stuff with Victor that you're just going to have to ignore. Okay. Not functional, right? He's still hitting his irons great. He's still got a lot of great history, a lot of great long-term, like I know exactly why my numbers continue to believe that Hovland has upside, right? His iron play is like, I mean, he shot 4 under on Friday, and at Bay Hill too. It's like he's hitting his irons amazing, and he like whenever he gets within 30 yards of the green, he is non-functional. Okay. One of these weeks he'll figure it out, but not now. I don't think, not yet. We'll see what the price is. Maybe you get not to win or anything, but like maybe in daily fantasy, if the price goes down and he's 3% owned. JT Poston, that was a play for us at Sawgrass last week. He's playing well. Rico Hoey, shout out Uncle Rico, shout out Kyle, shout out Rico H. 14 Sam Burns, who can't hit an iron right now at all. I don't know how he's going to win this tournament again without being able to hit an iron. It's not going to happen. 15 Adam Svensson. Whew. Man, if Adam Svensson at 5,500 made the cut this week, whew, a lot of fun stuff that would be a lot more fun stuff would be emerging for me tomorrow morning than what is going to happen in reality. But hey, I can live with that one. You take some shots. Svensson stinks. I know Svensson stinks. I've done the Svensson thing a lot of times. I've also benefited greatly on Svensson at times as well. And my numbers always like him too much. Cooch, 16. I think he's a golf course that Cooch can bunt it around and be okay at. 17, Ben Griffin, and I've been ignoring it for the past 3 weeks. Ben Griffin has basically just decided that he wants to play the Masters. So he's going to play every single event until the Masters, which is serial killer behavior. It's not. And honestly, if I had the opportunity to play the Masters and had like a percentage chance to play the Masters, I'd probably seek every... I'd probably milk that one dry too. Like, he's clearly just playing every single week until the Masters to keep trying to get into the Masters. But I think he's been experiencing diminishing returns, and we've been fading the last couple of weeks because the driver's going in the wrong direction. And I just think he's spinning his wheels a little bit right now. You know what? He missed a cut at the Players. He got 2 more days of rest. That's not a bad thing for him. 18, Michael Kim. I thought that was terrible chalk last week, but I love myself a bounce back. I love myself a flop lag. I could get down with some Michael Kim this week. You know, happens quite a bit. Something to look out for, okay? A lot of times when guys are playing very well, and then the world hops on them, generally when the world hops on a guy, it's heat check time, okay? It often, although you kind of could have made the argument that Kim was due for a heat check before the Players. It was just like, okay, it's not happening. Okay, not happening. But like, I thought Michael Kim was done at the API and he dunked in my face. You know, I have not been a Michael Kim guy. Like I'm a Gim guy. I'm a Rye guy. I'm not a Sep guy. I'm not a Michael Kim guy. And that kind of is probably why I rode the Gim and Rye chalk and faded the Kim and Straka chalk. And I kind of like Michael Kim this week, the next week at the Valspar. 19, Corey Connors. Feels kind of low for him, to be honest with you. I actually don't know why Corey Connors is not higher. Probably because he's really doing it a lot more with his driver than he is his irons right now. Like, Corey Connors has not been hitting his irons amazingly well, including at the Players. He's just been hitting every fairway, and hitting every fairway at the Valspar is going to help you quite a bit as well. Number 20, Bud Cauley. Maybe a week early. Who knows? Bud Cauley, these numbers do not include the Players' numbers. So maybe the model was seeing something that Bud Cauley was close-ish that it did see at the Players as well. Bud Cauley was like top 35 in my model at the Players, and I did nothing with it. I looked right past it, which I do sometimes. And that's why I try, that's why I try and lay out the information. I think the way that I break down golf courses and how I model, and the way that I know how to model, how I put certain weights on certain things, is second to none in terms of my process. I of course I'm saying this. I would have started a company if I didn't believe this about myself. But the decisions that I make with that information sometimes, fucking idiotic. Like some of the dumbest decisions. You like look at you like you look at the data, and because I like have to explain sometimes the bad decisions with good data to people every week. Like, why'd you do this? The data, like, you know, that was probably another one to like, hey, Bud Cauley, looking really, really good for you. You're just really just gonna skip him. So I don't know. Maybe I won't skip him next week. My early leans, I think it would be pretty difficult for me to stop betting Daniel Berger at this golf course. Like, of that group of Xander, Tommy, JT, Lowry, Berger, Straka, Berger's probably my favorite bet. I think Xander still, gearing up. I think he took even a little bit of his ball striking looked a lot worse this week than it did at Bay Hill. I think Tommy's playing some of the best golf of his career, but I'm not betting Tommy outright 3 weeks in a row. Maybe he'll be a big anchor in DFS for me. JT's a wild ride. The highs are high, the lows are low. I liked a lot of what I saw last week from him at the Players. Obviously, he tied the course record. He also shot a 78 one day, 77 in round one. He lost 9 strokes ball striking, and then the next day tied the course record. I don't know. I bet him at 30-1 at the Players as like kind of a late last minute ad with my card. And faded him in DFS, and I don't have a strong read on him at the Valspar. We'll see where the number comes in. I'd rather bet Berger. I think the guys that would probably make the most sense for what I'm feeling is Berger and Rye getting a win. Would probably line up the most with what I've been feeling recently. But yeah, I like JT posting quite a bit. And I like Corey Connors quite a bit as well. Lucas Glover might be a letdown for Lucas the next week. I would be somewhat careful with the Burns course history, personally. And that's it for me. So enjoy the golf tomorrow. Good luck with your bets. Good luck to all of my friends in the Discord and all of the listeners of this pod in general that have some really big stuff to root for. I'm kind of grinding out like, the trying to in between like a min cash and a 2x week in DraftKings. It's going to be good, not big money. Too many dopey mistakes at the bottom for the big money. And Patrick and Tommy Cantlay, Zalatoris today. Whoa. I thought, gosh, Zalatoris 90-1. He was tied for the lead on Saturday. That was like really cool for a second. And then he went like eight over through his next 4 holes, something like that. But the point being, enjoy the golf tomorrow. I really don't like threesomes, but I think it is terrible for the pace. But hopefully should be some fun conditions at the Players. We'd love to see you in the Discord this week for the Valspar. Join the team. Golf courses don't need to be a mystery anymore. So we've got some great stuff coming for the Valspar. I'm really proud of what we're doing at this company and how we're helping people in the golf streets, and we'll keep it coming. So best of luck with your bets tomorrow, and we will see you next time. Cheers.